Welcome back to another episode of The Money Honey with myself, Rosalia Lazara Tilly, your host of The Money Honey. And today I have invited another very well connected, well spoken, well experienced money honey within the property space. So we're going to meet her in just a moment, but I wanted to give you a bit of a backstory to how we met and what she's all about and what today's show brings. But just before I do so, I just want to thank you as a listener once more for being a listener of Money Honey, because you are all, as listeners or as a guest, you are a money honey if you're in the industry of property finance and construction, or accounting or law, whoever you are listening in on this. And I often get asked about my brand, and because I've got like a bee related brand, if I am, the queen bee, or if I want to be known as the queen bee, or if people call me a queen bee. And I was like, reflecting on that for a while when I was designing the brand, and I was like, no, I'm not the queen of the bees at all. I don't want to, and there's nothing wrong with that. My queen bee is Beyonce, right? Like, all hell to her. Like, she's the queen bee for me. I also have another queen bee out there who is my queen bee, which is Danny Wallace. Like, she's my queen bee. Like, absolutely, she is what she is. But I reflected on this and I was like, no, I don't want to be the queen, because I see myself as a worker bee, like a bee that goes out there and does, is on the ground working, jumping from flower to flower, collating pollen, and then goes back to the hive. And then as a collective with all the other bees, we make the honey. And that's why that money honey to me makes me feel like you are the same as me, whether you are a guest or the host or a listener. We're all the same money honeys, because as a collective, you can't make honey on your own. Like, a bee on its own can't make honey. You have to have a swarm of a swarm of bees to make the honey. So you are part of that tribe. You are part of that swarm. So whether you are listening or speaking or hosting or sharing this, you're part of that, what we call here at Manuka Media and Money Honey, we call that positive pollination. That's our terminology. That's our saying. That's our motto. And it's to positively impact in one way or another, whether it's your contribution as a listener or your contribution as a client, whatever contribution, that tiny bit of pollen that you bring to our tribe is contributing to the honey, all in that golden, luxurious melting pot. Okay. So thank you once more for listening and for being here. Now we are going to give a very warm welcome to our guest here, but before I do, I'm going to introduce her. So I am super happy to be meeting today and finally having a quality conversation with the one and only Stephanie Taylor, because we've met at events, and you know what events are like. We never get a chance to really talk. And Stephanie is the founder of Rent to Rent Success. So clearly we're going to be touching on that rent to rent strategy as well, if you're interested. But like I said, she is a money honey because she's a co-founder of an award-winning property management and development company, HMO Haven, and co-founder of Rent to Rent Success, which has inspired thousands of non-traditional investors get into property. So this is another route into property if buying and selling or buying and keeping isn't for you. Now, she runs this alongside her sister, Nikki, and they grew their property management business very quickly and brought their own multi-million pound portfolio of multi-unit blocks, commercial property, and HMOs. So she has been there, done it, living it, breathing it, and I believe teaching it. So if you're ever going to get guidance, knowledge, and experience from the one and only in Rent to Rent, I have to say the first name that comes into my head is Stephanie. Now, she was voted Inspirational Person of the Year in 2021. Doesn't surprise me. She's also been featured on the BBC, Entrepreneur, Business Insider, and The Telegraph. Amazing. She's also the author of a #1 best-selling book, Rent to Rent Success, and host of the top 1.5% Rent to Rent Success podcasts. Like, do you understand what kind of money honey I brought you here today? Like, do you really absorb like who you're about to meet on the show? And so, without further ado, after decades of the wealth of business and experience that she brings, she is a huge advocate for the ethical property investment that is open to everybody at starting at any age. So, this is it, guys. This is your money honey, Stephanie Taylor. Welcome to the show. How are you today?
Oh, Ross, it's amazing to be with you. I love the concept of what you're doing at Money Honeys and that we're all Money Honeys and inspiring and helping and assisting each other.
Yes, yes, we're all making that honey together. So thank you for giving up your time. You are a busy woman. You are doing so much. And so I am really blessed and so grateful that you've taken your time to be here on the show today, because I cannot keep you away from my audience. I need them to see you, I need them to know who you are. So, for those who don't know you, I've given a hopefully a very accurate, detailed intro, but just give us something about, just give us a hello and who you are and what you do and what you'd like to talk about today.
Yeah, I absolutely loved your intro, Rosalia. I need to have you walking around with me to give my intros. But basically, I'm a property investor and I got into property later in life in my 40s and didn't really know that I could be a property investor. I thought it would be a big deal just to own my own home and sort of have sort of some financial, in inverted commas, security. Um, but a few years ago, there was a change. My mum got ill and I had a life change, and I just thought, I need to do something different. And it ended up that we started this business, the property management business called Rent to Rent, where you rent out a property and rent it out again. And we found you could make money that way and provide an amazing service. And so we did that. And from that, we got our confidence. That was the first step. And then with my sister, we started buying properties to keep. And that's turned out into be blocks of flats, as you said, commercial properties, HMOs. And through doing all of that, people come up to us and says, well, how did you do it? How did you start? They knew us from before. And that's how we started teaching people, mentoring people. We became certified coaches. And it's just really grown from there with the book and the podcast.
Wow. So tell me about your first step into that journey, though. So, did you have to start with a lot of capital? Did you have to start with a lot of knowledge at time? Like, how do you just start?
I just started, Roz, with the fire in my belly. That was it. I just had this idea, we can do this. And I started going to events because initially I didn't have the confidence. I started going to property events and people were talking about all the different things they were doing. There were people doing rent to rent. And at the beginning, I thought, oh, I don't think I would be able to do it. But then as time went on, you see all sorts of ordinary people doing extraordinary things. And I thought, you know what, we could do this. And we could add a little bit of care to it because it didn't feel like everybody was really having the proper care for the properties um, and the people. And I just thought we could do this with care. And that's why we called it HMO Heaven. And the first thing we had to do was try and get a property to rent. And I was so terrified about this going in. And obviously at the beginning, we didn't know as much. I was just learning all the time and reading, listening to podcasts, watching videos, doing courses, and I knew as much as I could about the first step, going in and getting a property. And that's is often for many people the hardest part. But I just had to have a word with myself and go in there, and it happened. It happened for us.
Well, it didn't. Well, you made it happen. It doesn't just happen, right? It doesn't just happen, but you have to, like you said, you started out with the knowledge, the education, and then you went to networking events to build up your confidence and to meet people. And then what made you choose rent to rent? Or can you describe what rent to rent is and how or why that works for people?
Yeah, well, I have to say at the start, because I know people have been listening and they've never heard of this before and they think that can't be right. I'm sure this is illegal. But basically, what rent to rent, I'm going to say what buy to let is because people understand that. You buy a
Yeah.
property and you rent it out and you make some money. And usually you'll need around £50,000, even for a starter one, to put your deposit and all of the other costs that you have of buying it that are going to be tied up in that property. With rent to rent, you rent the property. So just as you would rent a property to live in, you rent a property, a slightly different contract, and then you rent it out again. And with buy to let, you might need about 50 grand. You'll probably make about £300 a month on a bog standard one. On rent to rent, you rent the property and then you rent it out again, and you can make anywhere between 500 and over £1,000 a month. So you can actually make considerably more money for considerably less investment. So that's what made it attractive for us, and yeah, that's what's made it a great business for us over the years.
Your investment is renting someone else's, so a landlord's property. So you say, look, I'm going to give you £900 a month for this
Yeah.
property, but then you sublet it to someone else for 1,700.
Yes. And people ask, how can you do this? And the reason is that a lot of the properties, HMOs especially, are not managed well. Because if you think a typical letting agent's got maybe 100, 200, 300 more properties, they're not necessarily able to manage HMOs in the way that they need to be managed. And so if a landlord has empty rooms over the time, if there are maintenance issues that get out of hand and things like that, that can cost them what they should be getting. And so when they come to us, we give them that consistent amount the whole time. So it can work out better for landlords, because people come to me and say, you're ripping off landlords, you're ripping off housemates. Well, no, landlords are very savvy people, and they would not work with us if it was not beneficial to them. And the same, housemates have all the options on the marketplace, not just our property. So we only can attract tenants because our properties look good and they're affordable price. We're not sort of charging these massive rents.
Yeah, it's got to be in line with what's available on the market, you know. But I think what a landlord benefits from working with rent to rent firms is that they get that guaranteed income and that stability, and they don't have to manage the clients, like they don't have to manage the tenants, because you're doing that for them.
And they don't have to manage the
And the
bills, which is
property.
a big
Yeah.
deal. Bills,
Yeah.
because utility bills have gone up. You know what it's like dealing with utility companies. So they don't have any of that. And so that's what they like. Because a lot of landlords, it's not their main business. Having those HMO properties is not their main business. They've got other businesses or careers. They've got families. They've got other things. It's not fun for them.
Yeah, no, exactly. I certainly know a lot of landlords, and you know that when your property's vacant and you're trying to replace the tenant, or you know you're in the middle of a job, you know, 9 to 5, and then all of a sudden like the boiler breaks and you need to handle it. You know, it is an extra job, and then like you say, at the end of the month, you probably only net £300, and you're like, I did so much work for this. But rent to rent, unlike holding and keeping a property and being a landlord, on the flip side, you don't actually own the building, therefore you don't
Yeah,
have the long-term asset, right? You have the cash flow.
that's right. Yeah. So it's like a cash flow business, not an asset business. Uh-huh.
Exactly. So if you want to get into property for cash flow, then and you just want the monthly rental income, you can invest in rent to rent. If, however, you wanted a long term, so do you have any long term strategies, Stephanie, as part of your portfolio to balance out this short
Yeah.
term kind of cash flow business?
Yeah, we at the beginning everything seems like it's far distant from you, but then you start and you think, you see all the other people doing actually buy to let and see how they're funding it, what their strategies are, and we just saw the cash flow that we were getting, and we just thought, oh, we can buy property. So the first property we bought was a commercial property that we ended up changing into 4 flats. We had thought we were going to sort of convert it into an HMO. And then since then, we've bought other blocks of flats. That's worked out to be an accidental strategy, but a really good strategy for us for a lot of different reasons. And so I often say to people, actually, if you think about getting um, a house divided into 2 flats, or a house divided into 3 flats or more, then you get a lot more value under one roof. Your costs are lower, your finance costs are lower, your maintenance costs usually are lower than if you had four separate properties. So that works out a really good way of doing things. And you've got multiple exits. Like you can do what we do, long-term rentals, but you could also have a block of flats and have the whole block as short-term rentals and have it managed by somebody else.
So, what would you say are prime opportunities as we enter 2025? What would you think is a prime opportunity that we as investors or investors out there listening should be looking out for?
Definitely, I think multi-unit blocks is one of them because if you're trying to buy a single let property or even an HMO, there's so much competition out there from other investors wanting to do the same and willing to offer more sometimes. When you buy properties that normal families or the average first time buyer, second time buyer, whatever, is not going to buy, when you buy properties that other people can't finance, such as a block of flats, that's what it is in a layperson's terms, but it's called multi-unit blocks from a lender perspective. When you're buying multi-unit blocks, you have to have commercial finance. And so if you get a good broker, I know a lot of brokers listen to this podcast and people who are aware of brokers, but if you get a good broker and you sort out so that you're able to get commercial finance, you then become one of a few people who can compete for that property. Now, the best type of block of flats to buy is the block of flats which is in a bad condition, because how they're appraised, how they're valued is usually on a multiplier of the rental income. So the value when it's in a bad condition is lower. So the block of 12 flats that we bought, at the time when we bought it, the rental income was £44,000 a year. And the valuation was 440. It was on a 10 times multiplier. We actually got it for 375. It wasn't a great condition. And since we bought it, when we bought it, it was cash flowing. And that means tenants were paying rent and the tenants continued to live there. And some of the rooms were empty. So when we came in, we then picked up those rental income for those tenants and we started doing up the rooms that were empty. And so as each person then moved out, we only had to do it one room at a time. So we didn't need to pour a huge amount of money in there before we could start making any money. We're making money the whole time and we're gradually doing up each part. So over the period we've owned the property, which is since 2019 till now, the rental income has gone up to £66,000.
Wow.
So the value has gone from 440, well, actually 375 is what we paid for it, to 660. Now, as you know, Ros, you don't always get the valuation that you hope for. But even so, from 375 to approx somewhere around in the region of 660, remembering that we're in South Wales, which is not a high equity value, a fast rising in the price of property area. In fact, it's been very flat. That is massive. So I think the multi-unit blocks are one of the best opportunities.
So you nearly answered, yeah, you kind of answered my next question where you were describing these kind of blocks. And having been through this journey myself and currently still going through it with my husband, there are some people that are in a position where they're like, well, I don't have the money. What do I do? That's my
Yeah.
problem. But the problem we had is I've got the money now. Where do I go? So how do you know or spot, like the UK is huge. So
Yeah.
if you have some money, like 50 grand, 70 or 100,
Yeah.
where do you go in the UK? How do you know where to spot these opportunities?
There are opportunities all over the UK. They're just different opportunities. So the opportunities here, I personally wouldn't buy anywhere. I know that lots of investors do invest all over the country. That's not our strategy. We invest near where we are. And people in London, I know, for example, there's Jason who does the short leases. He does that
Yeah, Jason. Yeah.
in and around London, which you would think would be priced at the market. But on the outskirts of London, he's buying flats for 200 and 300 and sometimes less. So you can do it in and around the expensive areas if you know what you're looking for. So he's looking for short leases. I would be looking for these type of places that are already converted badly in a bad condition, or you're looking for commercial properties which can be converted. Obviously, the first one is my preference, because when you begin to convert a property, which we've done, you can go grey hair and go old because
Yeah.
there's so much that happens and so much that can go wrong. It can be really rewarding, but actually buying the multi-unit block and doing it up from old to new in the shorter term is more financially rewarding than buying a commercial property and converting it and then owning it. But I think we're open to both because it's easier to find the second kind of opportunity, i.e., the commercial property, to buy and convert than it is to find the blocks of flats that
Yeah.
have been converted and
Yeah.
are in bad condition in the right
Yeah, because
areas.
you
And
can.
yeah.
Yeah, so how do you know what makes a right area? Like, how would you assess the right area? What key features are you looking for?
Well, I'm looking for places that people want to live. So I think the worst house on the best street is great advice. So for us, it's got good transport links. It all depends, sorry, on the profile of the property. So if it's a one-bedroom flat, you want somewhere where young professionals and people who are looking for a one-bedroom flat are going to live. If it's a three-bedroom house, you want somewhere where families are going to live. So then schools and that might come into it. But for ours, there tends to be one and two-bedroom flats for young professionals. That sort of person is most likely. And so we want somewhere with good transport links, good work opportunities nearby, good, shops, bars, and all that. Places where people want to be, in short.
And that's why you need to invest, like you say, the top tip is invest where you know, because then you know if that's a good street, if that's a good area, if that's a good town, right? So am I right in saying that your location is South Wales?
Yeah, that's right. Yes.
Is that where you live?
Yes, I
I
do.
didn't know this.
We do. My sister used to live in London for many, many, many years. I lived in Edinburgh for a long, long time. And then I'd settled in
Oh,
Bristol a few years ago. And that's when the bug caught me. When you go slightly mad, you go to all these events, and you're like, what are people?
yeah.
Oh my God, I did not know this was even a thing. I thought this was for other people, a different world. And then you sort of come into this world. And since everything has changed, since we started this. We started the business, we did managing other people's properties. It went really well. We started buying properties, doing them up. Suddenly, we've got this property portfolio. Then we started investing in stocks and shares.
Yeah.
My sister already had some pensions, so she was kind of doing it already, but not herself. And then she's taken her money out of her personal pension, started investing. They're still in a personal pension, but she's now investing them actively. And she's grown her pension pot, tripled it in the short time that she's had that access. So, money honey is such a powerful thing because it gives you your freedom. It gives you, yes, you may be married or have a partner, but you've also got your own thing. You know how to create the money. If anything happened to your partner and they got sick or whatever, you're able to steer the ship as well. And if you don't need to, all the better. It's just a cherry on the cake. So I think it's really important for women, even if you don't want to do property, to invest your money to make your money grow. And that's why I love, what you're doing on this show.
Oh, there's still so much. Thank you. I mean, there's still so much I need to do and learn. I mean, I've started my own private pension from my limited company. Every now and again, when I've got like spare cash, if you like, I just put it in something different that, my financial advisor will always say, don't do that. Always
Yeah.
invest in your pension because that's more tax efficient. But I just put it in like, I don't know, Ethereum or Sol or something like that, just
Mm,
to see. You just don't know. I mean, that is a gamble. That is because I don't know what I'm doing there. That is more gamble.
mm,
But I'm trying to look at no one really knows what they're doing. But unless you've been in it for so long that you know how to analyze the market. But some people just do it and they get lucky and they're like, oh my gosh, I've made so much money out of that. I'm not there yet. I literally the day I invested in some of these cryptocurrencies, I got the app and everything, and then I think the next day or a week later, it was like, this has gone down. This has gone down. This has gone down. I was like, oh, brilliant. I was like, I've just literally bought it and it's gone down.
yeah.
So yeah, it's quite funny in our household, but I'd rather be looking at that than, looking at something else that would distract me and maybe lead my money towards, you know, wasteful stuff rather than looking at that. I'd rather be playing with my money there and learning how I can grow it. Because, like you say, you know, my husband does have a fantastic job, fantastic pension, but yeah, I want my own independence, you know, my own business, my own pension, my own success, because, and then we're doing the property thing together because, again, yeah, we're married and we want to do that journey together. So it is about developing your own financial literacy and security and independence, because you just don't know when you need it. You just don't know, right? So I love that. I love the stocks and shares that your sister's doing, the tripling her pension. We probably need to get her on the show and find out how. So what's the next move for you then, Stephanie? What are you interested in diversifying into? Are you just doing the same thing again and again and again? What's your plans?
Well, at the beginning, we were very focused on one thing, and I think that's why we were so successful in it. When we started at HMO Heaven, that was our thing. We were running that property management business, and it was doing very well. We've continued to grow that business. We've got a team in it now, so that we're not in that business day to day. For example, Nikki's on holiday this week, and I have spoken to our property manager twice, and that was only because yesterday I thought, oh, I better call her and just say, you know, do you need anything? You know, what?
Yeah.
But basically, the systems we've got in place there mean that we don't need to be in it on a day-to-day basis. So the things that I love doing are the training, the mentorship. It's helping people to take what they've got, which is knowledge, they've got verbs, they've got ambition, they want to do this, but they haven't necessarily got the amount of money or the chutzpah to say to other people, lend me your money, because they're not quite at that stage of confidence that they know what they can do with that money. So starting off with this management, so we do the rent to rent success mentorship where we help people. And I was at an event, it was the Black Business Show on Saturday just past. Friday, the property part was. And so many people came up to me and they said, oh, we've read your book. Oh, I've got my book here. Rent to Rent Success. I've got a free copy for your readers. I'll tell you about that at the end. But people said, I read the book and I felt inspired to have a go. And now I'm managing 18 HMOs. That's what Chanel said to me. And, or other people said they've listened to the podcast. They didn't know it was possible, because mainly it can be very male dominated. Sometimes if you're from a non-British background, like, because I'm a Black woman, other women can relate and think, oh, hadn't really seen people doing it, which makes a big difference. It sounds very basic, but I think people get so much encouragement when they see people like themselves doing it. So that's one part of what I do. And the other thing that's exciting us is the biggest property that we have is 12 flats. And what we've realized is to do 4 flats, which is the smallest one, or to do 12 is the same effort. So we want to find some bigger properties that have got, 20 plus units. So again, we're probably not going to find the flats already ready, already converted. We're probably going to have to convert something for that or build something. So we're looking for a site. That's a project that we want to do next year, do a much bigger project. And the last thing that I'm doing right now, because once you get financially secure, you can start to look at the things that you really, really want to do. And my mum's had a health scare. I've had a health scare. I've become very interested in health. And so I've just launched a brand that's called Happy Sexy Health, which is all about the lifestyle secrets that your doctor won't tell you. And it's basically that there are so many illnesses, diseases, chronic illnesses that are caused by high blood sugar. It starts off with pre-diabetes, diabetes, then it can go into all sorts of chronic autoimmune issues. People can actually literally go blind. They can lose their hands and feet. And doctors, they will go to doctors over many years. This is a slow process. And they will never, ever be told, you can reverse this disease process within weeks or months simply by reducing the sugar in your blood, i.e. changing what you eat. and they're not being told, and it's absolutely scandalous. So sorry, I'll go on a bit of a rant whenever
No, no,
I
no, please. No, you have no idea how much I preach to my family, and they're gonna hate me for this, but you know, I'm out on them. But like, look, I cured myself from changing my food. Um, I was suffering with extreme stomach cramps, and I even lost a shoe size. Just I was a much bigger person. And it was big for me. It was, yeah, it was, I know people looking at back at my pictures are like, oh Roz, you don't look, I'm like, but everybody's different. So
yeah
a size, a voluptuous 16 or 14 or 18 can look curvaceous and beautiful and rich and beautiful on someone. Like the plus size models. Oh, it's gorgeous. But for me and my body and my face, I even had swollen gums. Obviously, I was a bigger shoe size. And I was young. It was just before, like, I'd say I changed my body around like the age of 21. So growing up, like, feeling the way I was feeling was not nice. All my teens, I just hated my body. I hated who I was. I hated everything about my look, everything. And so to only really start finding yourself now in my 30s, I feel like wine. I've got better with age. Um, that's how that's not very common. People think that with age you get worse, but
yeah
I got myself better with food. So I was down this rabbit hole with like doctors and colonoscopies and IBS and like all this exploration about that something must be wrong from the inside. That's why I was having these pains, but actually it was whatever I was putting into my mouth. And what really then changed it drastically, yeah, was just changing my food. I'm not a drink. I don't drink a lot at all. I hardly have any alcohol. I We don't buy, like, bread and pizza are my weakness, and I will never give them up. Like, I love the taste and I love it, and I love going to Italy and eating my country's rich culture and rich food. I will never give up alcohol, never give up that stuff, because I don't need to, because I'm not a binger on it anymore. So I don't buy bread in the house. We don't buy chocolates. If we buy crisps, we'll buy like the vegan pea crisps, like something. So we've changed how we see. Yeah, we just eat real food basically now.
yeah
We just eat real food. I'd rather have an avocado with eggs than like a toast with butter on it. Like, I don't know, it's just how you see food differently. And then fitness and sleep and health, and yeah, so I'll be your first customer for anything that you do health related, because I think we need more. I think it's our absolute core responsibility and duty to be healthy business owners. How dare you be an unhealthy um business owner, because you are supplying for your family. You've also got team. You need to be a good version, the best version of yourself, because people depend on you. Your customers, your clients, yourself. Like, there's no point having a successful business. Loads of people make excuses that they eat McDonald's on the road because it's just the quickest thing. I've been on the road for 13 years working as a relationship manager, and not once have I stopped over the side of the road and had a McDonald's. Never, ever, ever, ever have I ordered that. Have I gone to Costa's and had a toasty and a coffee? Yeah, okay. But I've always tried to do the best I can, even with the limited resources that I might have had available. But yeah, I don't know. I'm very passionate about this subject. And yeah, there's people that suffer with certain illnesses, and then you look at what they're eating, you're like, do you think
But we're not
maybe?
told. We're not told. And
I know, I know.
sometimes they go to their doctor and they say, could I be eating anything else? And most times the doctor will say it's got nothing to do with what you eat. Or they'll just say, just eat less and move more. But that's not working. And for a lot of people, especially older women, when you it's the type of food you eat as well, not just the food. But I don't want to railroad
No,
this.
no, yes, no. This is another episode for another time. But it is important for women listening to this, because there are women, like there was a lady I know who just really quickly, like, suffers badly with the menopause, but she only eats beige food. And I'm like, girl, like, you when was the last time you had like some protein is like the most important thing that women need to eat. Like, you can't start your day with toast. Like, that's not going to.
You are speaking my
Stephanie,
language.
Stephanie.
It's, do you know what? Protein and fat. The reason why many of the women are suffering is because the doctors and the health institutions say, oh, but don't eat red meat, whatever you do. Don't eat fat, the fat that comes with the meat. But there's a reason why red meat is the most nutritious food source that we have, and the fat that comes with it. And absolutely, there are proteins in plants, but they're not the proteins we need. And as we get older, we struggle to convert those plant proteins into. And I don't mind if people go vegan on an ethical basis, but if they're going vegan for health, it's not the healthiest, and it's studied. It's not just something I've made up. I've been vegan, but
I went vegan for 1 month and I felt, yeah, rough.
and
I felt
it's
rough.
but I think it's the lies that are told. But yeah, so that's what I'm doing. Happy, sexy health to help
Yes.
people thrive at any
Yes.
age. And we've got rent to rent success, where that's about thriving with financial abundance. But there's happy, sexy health is all about health abundance,
Health,
health.
all the abundance, guys. You've got
Yeah,
everything here today. You've got
yeah.
property, money, investing, health. Stephanie has gone above and beyond because abundance is in her nature. She's abundant, and that's what she's done for you here today. But if you want to continue this conversation with Stephanie, reach out to her. Like, I'm going to be putting in the show notes her social media handles, and
Yes.
follow her journey. Get to one of her events, get her book. Because if you want to be surrounded by this energy, and if you want to know, well, where do I begin? I know I need to change my health, but I don't know what to do. Like, so recently I've just been introduced to mouth taping, and I have got an Amazon order, a stack of mouth tapes coming my way. My husband will be very happy about those. But I'm like, that's it. From now on, I am taping my mouth, and I'm going to now teach my body to do much deeper nasal breathing, because all these things, we need to learn and nurture our bodies. So thank you, Stephanie, for all your abundance, all your wisdom, all your kindness here today. I really appreciate it. So quickly, do you want to tell our audience about the book?
Yes.
You
So
said something
you can
about
get that at renttorentsuccess.com/honey. And it's called Rent to Rent Success. And it's
Dash
all
Honey.
about
Yes.
/honey. And it's all about how to make money from property you don't own in an ethical way. A great way to get started. Or DM me at Rent to Rent Success on Instagram, or at Happy Sexy Healthy. I would love to hear from you. Any questions you want to ask me?
Thank you, Stephanie. Thank you for having a personalized URL for our money honeys here today. That is amazing. I'll put that in the show notes if you've sent it to us. If not, send it to me. And yes, I hope you've all enjoyed the show today. Thank you for coming back with us once again on such a great interview with another Money Honey. Remember to follow and stay tuned for the next episode that's coming out every Friday. Remember, we release a show every Friday at 8 a.m. And so this could be part of your miracle morning, or your spiritual routine, or your commute to work. Whatever it is, we want you here with us. So thank you for being part of it. Take care.